This video is sponsored by The Little Book of Unholy Questions by me, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. What a wonderful book of 501 very insightful and incisive questions that I asked God. And so far, after all these years of having written a book, she hasn't answered any of them. So I'm quite disappointed, but that doesn't stop it being a remarkably good book. So please grab yourself a copy. The Little Book of Unholy Questions, where I ask God lots of questions under different topics, such as heaven, hell, Jesus, the resurrection, the Bible, prayer, and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's a very fulfilling read. So, welcome to another A Tippling Philosopher video. This one I'm going to talk to you about a question that is very pertinent, particularly in the modern political climate. Well, I say modern, the one that's happening right now, which is the election in the US involving Trump and Biden. But if you're watching this several years later, it's still relevant now, which is to say that we have disagreements with people with whom we are at the opposite ends of any given spectrum. It might be religion and non-religion. It might be Christianity and Islam. It might be Christianity and non-religion, like atheism, or it might be, right wing, left wing, whatever. So the question is, can you be friends with someone with the opposite views to you? The short answer is probably not. So this is a question that was asked to me recently when I was having a massive argument on Facebook, and I turned it into a couple of blog posts with someone who was a Trump supporter. And I said, to be a Trump supporter, you must be experiencing all this cognitive dissonance because, it's morally problematic, blah, blah, blah. And this question came to me from someone else who was watching this debate between two supposed friends, saying, are you two actually friends? Can you be friends? And I thought this is a really interesting question in terms of the politics, but actually in terms of religion and atheism. Can you be friends or even a partner with someone who has massively opposing views to you? As ever, it probably depends how you define friends, bearing in mind that we choose our friends, but it's worth differentiating that from family members, because family members, there's a different dynamic going on, and you can't necessarily choose them. So let's assume we're not talking about family, but we're talking about genuine friends here. As a background to this piece, I also believe that politics is a subset of morality. So morality at an individual level is what you should do in a given context, but politics is what you should do writ large across society. So what everyone should do in society, or what politicians should do in creating policies that affect everyone in society. I see politics as really a form of morality. Okay. So here's an anecdote. At university, in the first term I had there, the first few weeks, in my new halls of residence type flat complex, so where a flat is an apartment, so these sort of little individual rooms in groups of 5 that were set up all around, you became good friends, or you were thrown into living with sort of 4 other people. And one of those people in my little set of 5 rooms, I was pretty good friends with for the first 3 weeks. And then he said something to me. He said, "There ain't no black in the Union Jack." Now, this is a racist mantra where the Union flag is red, white and blue, and the idea that there's no black in it is to say that there should be no black people in Britain. And this was obviously racist, and I was like, oh, hang on. And then he expressed his political leanings to me, which are pretty much BNP, British National Party, sort of, oh, this guy's racist, okay. And at that point, my young self, I found there no reason to remain friends with this guy. I didn't have an outright argument with him. I was sort of young and out of my comfort zone, and starting off a new life at university and finding my way. But I didn't pursue that friendship because his politics qua morality were too antithetical to mine. And I think I was justified in holding that position. So the comeback to this position that I, do you know what, I should have remained friends with them in some way, would be that I should be willing to change people, to work with them to change them for the better, right? In a perfect world, perhaps I would spend all of my days seeking out friendship with racists, homophobes, misogynists, and the like, to see them as projects, right, as works in progress. But in reality, I've got a life to lead, and I want to be surrounding myself with good people as I see them, with good friends and people with whom I share experiences and commonalities, and that's important. Religion's a funny one because I can be friends with a theist as long as their moral compass is broadly aligned to mine. So this is often liberal Christians, maybe, or Muslims. And I have been friends with such people, but there might be fuzzy edges to that, you know, because this is about morality. How likely is it that an ardent theist is actually liberal? Well, probably less likely. And actually, ardent theists are usually religious fundamentalists, hard right conservatives. And the problem is the moral package that comes with that. So when I say there's a problem with me being friends with you because you're a fundamentalist Christian, it's not because of the label fundamentalist Christian, it's because what comes with that package, which is a moral package. You know, what are those moral stances that you have? So, as an aside here, you can, there are times when people make quite big moral proclamations in the abstract, maybe arguing online in a room on your computer, right? But in reality, they're actually quite good people, and you can tell that they are, but they've been environmentally more susceptible, maybe, to a religious context. And I have had meaningful relationships, sort of friendships with such people, recognizing that there are kernels of ordinary morality that have been blurred by thin veneers of religious morality over the top, that they can be sort of changed, that, you know, actually you're a decent person, you've just been brought up in this rather problematic religious context, but I recognize that, and we can work with that, and actually, you know, you're a decent person, really. If politically, morally speaking, though, you see homosexuality, for example, as a sin, you know, and that homosexuality should be denied access to the same human rights as me, should be discriminated against in law, then we're not going to be very good friends, because you will literally be discriminating against, you know, some of my family members and friends who are homosexual. I'm not going to buy you a pint, have a jolly good time with you over a long session at the pub if you harbour views that seek to hurt out my family members and friends, right? Here is a big problem. You know, I wouldn't take Hitler out to lunch, really, as a joyous occasion of friendship. Then again, how do we go about changing people's views? We know that it's better done from an in-group member, much more effective than by being an out-group member. So, you know, if I, as an atheist, am trying to change a fundamentalist Christian's viewpoints, then that's difficult. They're less likely to take on my you know, moral reasoning. Much better to be someone in your own in-group to nudge you in the right direction, or towards a more correct direction. So a liberal Christian is more likely to convince a fundamentalist Christian from their position than an atheist who is 180 opposed. And this is where there's a lot to be said for education and for normalisation. Recently, a month ago, I watched the film The Old Guard on Netflix, which is an action film. Sort of fancy action film. It's really good, really enjoyed it. And then about halfway through the film, I turned to my partner and said, have you noticed that in this action flick, the two main protagonists are women and one of them's a black woman? I mean, this is quite interesting. Have you noticed that? And she was like, no, I hadn't. Wow. So 20 years ago, you wouldn't have had that. And had you had that, you would have really noticed it straight away. But because these kind of decisions to employ a more diverse set of people in a film, or in like coaching in sports, or in the boardroom or whatever, because there are regulations that force this to happen, eventually that becomes so normalized that you can take the regulation away, because actually we've got so used to it and you have those positive role models in place that people are naturally applying for such jobs. So you have a film where you have a parity of gender and ethnicity there, and it's normalized. And I think that really helps to change people's minds. So when we take that back to how do you change people's minds, I think culturally we are seeing a shift, hopefully, of people's stances with regard to race and diversity and all these and gender, all these things, partly because of a cultural shift, rather than having lots of arguments with people who are opposed to you. So there's a drip effect. So there are ways of changing people's minds. I suppose I have a duty in society. My duty to society and my desires for friendship will have an equilibrium somewhere. So whereby I don't want to see everyone as a project that I disagree with, and spend all my life changing people's minds. I do want to surround myself with good people whom I see as good, because they're like me, and then have a complete echo chamber. There's going to be some equilibrium somewhere where I will have some friends with people I disagree with, but how big is that disagreement, and where do they sit on those moral positions? Because at the end of the day, I think I do find it difficult to be genuinely good friends with, and that's different to being friendly with someone. So I can be cordial with someone and friendly with someone, but to be good friends with someone, I think it's really difficult if I'm morally antithetically positioned to them. Friendship is, at the end of the day, a form of validation. If I choose to be friends with someone or vice versa, it's a form of character validation, right? I'm saying to them, I approve of you. Can you be my friend? Because actually, you're a decent person. I approve of who you are and what you stand for. And hopefully vice versa. If I actively want to spend my time with a neo-Nazi, then perhaps friendship's not driving my desire to spend time with them, but maybe some duty to social betterment, right? And that's not really friendship. So now there are many elements to people's characters, and there may be elements to people who I really vehemently disagree with that are nice. They may be lovely to their mother or to their friends. Okay, that's people in their in-group. And maybe that's the case. And if I am friends with them, I might sort of take those parts of them and celebrate them. But I'd still feel deeply uncomfortable. And there would be a great deal of cognitive dissonance in my mind. I'm sure there are lovely people commenting on my blogs, on my blog threads and articles with whom I disagree with vehemently, but they might be lovely in certain contexts to their parents and friends and whatnot. But whilst being decent people in those small contexts, they are also maybe someone who has advocated, or they may be at the same time arguing for and voting for someone who advocated separation of families and caging children, putting children in cages, Trump. They may be advocating for and voting for someone who has suggested gassing or shooting immigrants at the border, Trump. Or failing that, just shooting them in the legs, Trump. A guy who ridicules disabled people, Trump. A guy who wanted to sentence 5 innocent black boys to death and refused to back down when they were exonerated on DNA evidence. Central Park 5, Trump. A man who serially lies and commits crimes. A man who pays off porn stars. A man who attacks deceased war veterans, so on and so on and so on and so forth. If you really support that man, think he's a fine fellow, then I don't think we can be friends. Your judge of character, your morality is so divergent from mine that you are, in many ways, not a nice person. If you look at this man on TV and think, yes, this is my guy, I like him, then no. We can't be friends. Not in a deep, connected way. Maybe we could be projects. because maybe you're nice to your mother, but that's as far as it'll go. We can't be friends. If you are morally opposed to me, we have issues. Anyway, as ever, question everything. Drop by my blog, details below. Please like and subscribe and do all of the things to this video that other YouTubers ask for. It would be nice to get more subscribers, eh? Yeah, question everything apart from me. And until next time, laters.